We evolved connected to the land, connected to each other. And that's where we feel at home. That's what we long for. It's a little light that we can call spirituality. Spirituality is about awakening to the connection of all of life and that we are a part of it. It's the joy we feel when we look at the stars and when we really feel ourselves as tiny little entities in this vast, vast, mysterious universe. I so wish that people would, in looking at the bigger picture, I was saying we need both resistance and renewal. The renewal is going on. It's going on all around the world, and it's amazing how much wealth you will discover once you change the lenses, these sort of paradigmatic lenses. You start looking for the local, and you start seeing the local. Again, remember the word local is not quite enough. We're talking about community, we're talking about human scale, we're talking also actually about more feminine, more ecological, more spiritually imbued ways of being and doing. And remember also the smaller and the local is also about slower. So we're talking about these sort of jewels of examples that are countless. And so once you start looking at, if you like, the economy of happiness that exists even in your environment, you will feel empowered, you will feel hopeful, you will feel convinced that this is a part that goes with who we are. We are made of the soil and the water. We are learning now through science about the microbiome in our gut and the microbiome in the soil. We are nature. And we're talking about it now, but we need to put that together as a bigger picture to understand that being in the universe as part of the living earth is local. It is place-based. It's not sitting in front of a computer looking at an image taken from the space of the earth. It's actually seeing ourselves instead, human societies in the hands of the earth. And the hands of the earth are the valleys and the ecosystems where people have adapted and learned, and they know that particular tree and they know this particular species. And it's absolutely not about only knowing that. It's not about isolation. What happens when people are more nestled both in a web of human relationships that provide security, that provide love and nurturing, when they are nestled in ecosystem, they are more secure and therefore open to diversity, open to difference, not fearful. So security is a fundamental aspect of this, and that security breeds peace, love, and tolerance. The other side is doing exactly the opposite. As people become more and more fearful, and we really are talking, we could analyze the entire patriarchal journey as a fear-based one. Fear of nature, fear of our bodies, and further removal from our senses, from the wholeness of who we are. And, looking down on animals, looking down on primitive peoples, and looking down on our supposed primitive emotions and bodies. There's a whole narrative, once you really see the trajectory, that is anti-life and anti-who we are. So the economies of happiness exist in those individuals and those people that are awakening to life. And they're awakening to their deeper sense of self. They're listening as much to their hearts and bodies and stomachs as they are to left brain narratives. So we must really distinguish between evolution and a particular culture, which happened to be a patriarchal culture that went off track, away from nature, using force and slavery, genocide, to create a global system that has expanded across the world. That system, that top-down system, was not created by the 99.9999% of humanity. It was a tiny group, and it has nothing to do with evolution, but it does have everything to do with the control that was possible because it was out of sight. It was happening at the global level. People weren't keeping their eye on that. They weren't aware that around the world, the tentacles of that system, which supposedly changed when the colonial powers left, the so-called third world. But we now know that no, they didn't actually leave because they left the tentacles of debt and enslavement in place. But more importantly, I believe now in the West, we need to understand that those tentacles of enslavement have continued right in the heart of London, right in the heart of New York and the US, where people are running faster and faster and faster, as I say, just to put a roof over their head, food on the table. It's crazy. It's so crazy. And it's a bleep. It's a tiny bleep in our historical evolution. We evolved connected to the land, connected to each other. And that's where we feel at home. That's what we long for. It's a little light that we can call spirituality. Spirituality is about awakening to the connection of all of life, and that we are a part of it. It's the joy we feel when we look at the stars and when we really feel ourselves as tiny little entities in this vast, vast, mysterious universe.